We had our product launched before ChatGPT. And this gave us a sort of an unfair advantage, which was that as soon as ChatGPT came out, AI was all over the media. Everyone was talking about AI, and we got to ride that tailwind when the AI hype was out there. We had a product out in the market.
We are in the process of training these agents. At the same time, I feel like sometimes we're training humans to talk to AI too, because over the course of the last 20 years, we've been trained to interact with these bots, right? Press one for this, two for that, nine to repeat type of systems. Now, anytime people hear anything robotic, they're like human, they're smashing their zero on their phone. But so it's a cultural challenge we're facing here.
It is a process of constant experimentation, and even messaging adapts over time. And some messaging that works today might not work in a few months.
Hey, welcome to the Message Market Fit podcast. I'm your host, Chris Silvestri. This is the show where we chat with B2B SaaS folks, marketers, product leads, growth owners, and founders about how they join the conversation already happening in their customers' mind. We unpack how they think, how they research, and how they shape messages that actually move the needle. No fluff, just systems, insight, and strategy you can actually use. Quick note before we dive in. This podcast isn't sponsored. It's supported by Conversion Alchemy, my own consulting business. So if you're listening and thinking, I wonder how aligned our messaging actually is, check out the Message Market Fit Scorecard. It's a free diagnostic tool I built to help B2B SaaS teams pinpoint exactly where their messaging might be breaking down. You'll find the link in the show notes. I'm really excited about my guests today, Kaushal Subedi and Ashish Ghimire. They are co-founders at Echowin, a voice AI agent platform that helps teams build and deploy production-ready AI agents across all channels. This is a messaging breakdown episode, so make sure you also check it out on our YouTube channel so you can see exactly what we are pulling up and reacting to on screen. In the episode, we chat about Echowin's positioning, how that is evolved, even looking at the Wayback Machine, so different version. And we also talk about how they found their builder persona through real users and core stickiness, what they see as their core differentiators, and we also do a teardown of their white label Pages for Agency, including how they think about testing messaging. So let's dive right in. Hey Ashish, Kaushal, how are you? Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Hey, doing well. How about you, Chris?
Good.
Well, I,
Awesome. So today what we have planned is a teardown, so a kind of messaging breakdown, and I want to start first with a high-level overview of what Echowin is, how you got to your current positioning through various iterations, and then we look at the copy for a specific page. All right?
Sounds great. Yeah. If you want, I
Cool.
can start with an intro.
Yeah. So why don't you guys tell us a bit about Echowin, what it is, what you guys do, who we do it for?
Yeah. So first, I'll start with my intro. My name is Kaushal Subedi. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Echowin. And me, along with Ashish and the rest of the team, we started this company back in November of 2022. And ever since then, a lot has changed. We've grown a lot. Initially, we started out as a call automation platform. We saw the potential of generative AI and where it was heading in the business world. And we saw a clear gap for small businesses to adopt generative AI in the form of phone call automation. We went at it. And initially, we were one of the first voice AI companies in the space, and we had our product launched before ChatGPT. And this gave us a sort of an unfair advantage, which was that as soon as ChatGPT came out, AI was all over the media. Everyone was talking about AI, and we got to ride that tailwind when the AI hype was out there. We had a product out in the market. Now, initially, we started out as a full horizontal platform that was geared towards almost all types of small businesses. So our positioning was something that we were still figuring out. It was very wide and very vague. And since then, we've gone through a bunch of different iterations that I will talk about here in a second. For now, I'll pass it to Ashish for a quick intro, and then we'll chat more about Echowin.
Awesome.
yeah, thanks, Kay. My name is Ashish Ghimire. I'm the other co-founder and current COO of the company. Before Echowin for more than 10 years, I was doing aerospace, developing control systems for aircraft. But that space is really fascinating, but at the same time, very slow moving. And the entrepreneurial hunger inside me kicked in. And that's when actually Kate pitched the idea of Echowin. And we looked at the market space and the opportunity. And it was clearly an opportunity to make an impact. When I say make an impact, typically when a technology like this comes to existence, usually it's the enterprises and larger companies, they take benefits of this technology. But we decided to start with SMBs. Our mission and vision was to make this thing accessible to small to mid-sized businesses across the globe. That's how we started. Like he was saying, before ChatGPT was public, we started our company. We had a working prototype. And within 15 days, we had a functional prototype. And in 3 months, we actually built a beta product with paying customers. So it was quite a journey. But yeah, we'll dive into product market fit and ICP and all this details down the road. But that's my intro. And
Nice.
thanks for inviting me here.
Cool. Also, so before we start into all that, I wanted to ask one quick question, which is I'm always curious when I work on positioning with clients, I'm always curious about finding out and uncovering a specific point of view that founders have, especially when I talk to them, because that's typically going to be the foundation for the sales pitch, sales collateral, the messaging framework, and all the copy that comes from that. So I was curious, when you got started, ChatGPT wasn't even public. What was your point of view? But what made you say, okay, I want to build this because I see the potential?
Yeah,
I think I'm going to pass this to Kay. He has a really beautiful story that kind
Mhm.
of ties things together.
thanks, Ashish. So initially, when we started, where this all started was actually not even from phone calls. I had early access to GPT-3, and I was building this little assistant for myself using on my Apple Watch using Apple shortcuts, where I could talk to the AI. I would like input with voice, and then that would send that information over to the large language model, and it would just respond back in voice again. My mind was blown. Like, for the first time, we had computers that could think, and they had logic and reasoning like humans, but at the same time, you could talk to them. And just that interface difference between a chat bot versus a voice bot, that there was like, I realized that in terms of the experience you get out of it, there was much more that came out of the voice side of it. And then my mom actually owns a small business. There was one day where I went to see her, I went to pick her up, and I was waiting for her to wrap everything up. So I was just like a third person in this room. She was with her client, randomly gets a phone call. She has to drop everything she's doing, run to the phone. And she was like speaking in a hurry with a person on the other side of the phone call, right? And there was like a lot of tension building up. I could see the client that was waiting, like they were clearly like, what's going on? My mom was like speaking in a rush. I'm pretty sure the person on the other side of the phone call felt that too. That's when it all clicked. That's where I realized that, hey, in a small business context, if we could automate phone calls using generative AI, which the technology now enables, that could be a big unlock. That's where I actually asked my mom, I was like, hey, if there was a solution like this, if you didn't have to pick up the phone call when you were busy, would you pay for it? She said, yeah. So that's how we got our first paying customer. And that kind of turned into some more market research. We started looking into different bands of the market to see how things were going. And what we realized was, first, a lot of the times when new technologies come out, they trickle top down, right? So a lot of times these enterprises have a lot of money to burn on R&D and technology like adoption costs, and they would be the first ones to get it. But then for the first time, we saw that generative AI was one of those things that could be distributed in mass. And after looking at the market, we also realized that there were companies that were focused on the enterprise band, right? Just because that's where the money is. But then nobody was looking at SMB space the way we're looking at in terms of phone call automation. So that's one thing after another, some market research. I was working at Amazon Robotics at this time. 7 days later, I quit my job. I just quit his job. We got started right away. So
Wow.
that's how Echowin started originally. Ashish,
Talk
feel
about conviction.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was very risky to be honest, because going from a steady paycheck where steady days and you knew exactly what you were doing to a
Yeah.
completely uncharted territory with new technology in a new market that hadn't even fully formed yet. That was risky, but then again, we realized it was now or never.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing with generative AI. When it came out, it was obvious to us, especially in the last 2.5 years being on the driver's seat, the entire framework of our society, the socioeconomic construct is shifting and changing. It's just a matter of time. Now things are in the early adopter space, things are slowly moving into the mass adoption. We wanted to be part of this entire shift in change and drive it in some capacity. That's why it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. I'm curious, what made you think that the voice agent field was viable? Because like back then, were these voice agent already good enough, do you think? I have no idea. I haven't really dove into the space and haven't really checked them out now, but I guess
Uh,
there was a big change in terms of quality of these voice agents.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think I'll quickly share my thought there. When we started, there was a prototype. It was more of a feasibility study in terms of what could be done with this type of voice technology, right? And we saw the opportunity, but obviously there were a lot of challenges in that
Mm.
process. Latency, how fast the AI response, right? Accuracy. Early on when GPT was available, everybody talked about hallucination. In business context, and these are any business, they want to make sure if they're utilizing a system, it's reliable and consistent. So reliability, consistency, and then the performance were some of the parameters that we really had to put a lot of time, energy, and effort in building. And early on, a lot of those challenges we had to solve architecturally, a lot of R&D. But now the underlying models have become significantly better where we can rely on their performance. But back then, we had several clever ways to solve the challenge while making the overall product package available to business and so that they can use it and actually take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Kaushal, can you
Yeah.
add more? Yeah.
When we got started, voice in using generative AI was not even a lot of the companies that we saw that were trying to automate voice. They were either using traditional natural language processing methods, these old like kind of stat-based models that could understand keywords, for example. We've all probably called banks and whatnot, where they're going to say billing for billing or
Yeah.
sales. So that was the state of the art. And even though that was the state of the art, most of the deployments were still like press one for this, press two for this, and you go through pages of this. And it was such a frustrating experience for both customers and businesses because on the customer's end, they would call a place, they would have to go through like pages and pages of menu,
Mm.
try to navigate their way to find the right place to reach to, and ask you a bunch of questions, right? Like you'd answer whatever you needed to answer. Then they would put you on a hold for 20, 30 minutes. You wait on hold, then you finally get someone on the other end and they would ask all those questions again. So what was the point of that whole, right? We saw that inefficiency. And on the businesses end, the drop off rates were high because people don't like waiting around for too long. And they were seeing customers drop. And a lot of times, especially if it's like a business that requires some amount of urgency, they were literally losing customers. What
Mm.
we saw with generative AI was for the first time, we could make these interactions more human like and a lot more fluid than they used to be. And second, when it comes to automation, I come from a big automation background. I think, I don't know if I mentioned my background. I come from a software engineering background. I was in the industry for about 12 years. And throughout my time, I've automated everything from like really old school metal building systems where they were using software 80s that couldn't be automatable to robotic stacks where there was a lot of automation. And what I realized was that automation was going to change forever. Reason for that is because with voice and generative AI paired together, these systems couldn't just take that information, collect information from the callers, but they could actually completely replace the middleman in terms of sending that information to where it needs to end up, right? Like most of these companies, they would have call centers, people would pick up the phone, they would collect information, and then they would have to do data entry into either their CRM or whatever system, like record management system they were using. We realized that this just bridges that gap completely. If you were a
Mm.
business that needed, let's say, customer onboarding or like customer intake, right? Imagine you're like a insurance agent. You probably want to ask some questions around to get information about the caller, and then you put them on some case management software or whatever you use that would give them a quote. Instead of having a person in the middle that has to kind of wait, like there was so much jank in the middle that could be replaced. And we saw that potential. And to be honest, when we started, all of this was not possible. The technology wasn't there yet. Now we take
Yeah.
so many things with these large language models for things like tool calling and whatnot. At that time, we can have to pave our own path. And even though sending a response back was not that difficult, plugging the data we got into other systems was still a challenge. At this point, that's really far. But I hope that kind of gives you a perspective in terms of what we saw and why we decided to go after this.
Yeah, totally. And
Actually, on that note, if I may add one thing, just double clicking on what Kaushal was saying there, Chris, one of the interesting things that we've seen is we are in the process of training these agents. At the same time, I feel like sometimes we're training humans to talk to AI too, because of what Kaushal was saying earlier, because over the course of the last 20 years, we've been trained to interact with these bots, right? Press one for this, two for that, nine to repeat type of systems, or balance to ask for a balance and things like that. Now, anytime people hear anything robotic, they're like human, human. They're smashing their zero on their phone. But so it's a cultural challenge we're facing here. Over the last 2.5 years, people wouldn't even interact with these agents. They had no idea you can actually have a fluent conversation and they can actually help you. But
Yeah.
things are changing now. We have seen drastic difference. And one of the things that people constantly bring up is voice quality. Does it sound like a human? I think it's important to sound like human today because the AI agent would finally then get the chance, the opportunity to showcase its capabilities. In the last year and a half, voice quality has improved quite a bit. Almost half of the callers, they are unaware at first if this is a human or a machine they're talking to. But then now they're also realizing that, okay, this thing's actually going to process my refund without me having to talk to a human. These are
Yeah.
intelligent systems. Yeah, just something to share.
That's crazy. Yeah, I can actually I empathize with you a lot because my past career I was a software engineer in industrial automation, so I used to automate like automatic assembly machines, kind of like robots and stuff, and designing the human machine interface. So there was a lot of automation and all the risks involved with people understanding and perceiving what you build. And also what you just said about teaching humans to speak with an AI voice also reminds me of the fact that I was just thinking recently with even with chats, ChatGPT or Claude or normal LLM chats, you like the better you are at giving the context to the LLM, the better you are at explaining what you need. It's like a skill in itself, like an art as well. The being able to almost persuade the LLM to give you the result that you want. And that's why I think copywriters or people who write online and are trained in that, I think have a slight advantage just because you are able to put yourself in other people's shoes and write from that perspective, which also means putting yourself in the AI shoes in this case.
So I think you touched on a very important point there. Your output from these large language models is only as good as the input, right? The fact that we're seeing positions like prompt engineers
Yeah.
opening up in companies like validates this fact even more. And one way I like to think of these large language models right now is they're almost like computers for your brain or calculators for your brain, right? So whatever input you give, that's what gets amplified. And right
Mm.
now, I think if there was one skill that I would brush up on if I was like entering the workforce or anything like that, it would be how to interact with these LLMs and how to be efficient with them. Like you said, like being able to provide the context, as simple as it sounds, that it's actually pretty complicated depending on
Yeah.
what type of output you're looking for. But yes, that's an important point.
Yeah. And speaking of how AI voices sound human, I literally was just playing with Gemini and their deep research product. And I basically used it just to create a couple of reports that I posted on my website. And I've also created, you can create the podcast, like the AI podcast for that, which is the
Yeah.
same that you can do with a Notebook LM. And then I downloaded it and I uploaded it on the article online just to like accompany the research report. And it's crazy, like how real those voices sound. The only annoying thing is that they make everything sound super exciting, even if it's like a trivial thing. So on that side, it's a bit comical sometimes, but yeah, they've become pretty good.
It's come a long way. I love Notebook LM for that reason. A lot of times I get like articles and documents and all sorts of things passed on to me throughout the day. And usually I don't get time to review them right there. But what I do is I just share them with my Notebook LM app
Yeah.
and it creates a list. And at the end of the day, I just have a 30-minute digest of all the things that I need to catch up on. It's amazing.
Nice.
The
Yeah.
world's
Awesome. So yeah, we touched on how you shape your initial idea. I wanted to, so we talked about that you started before GPT came out. So how did the rise of all these LLMs, especially because it was super fast, how did that change the way that you spoke about what you did in the product?
Yeah, that's a great question. Initially, we didn't really understand what kind of positioning we needed for a product like this to really make an impact on the customers that would come on the other end, right? We took the approach of, hey, let's do like a value driven messaging where it's like, hey, we kind of talk about what you get out of it, right? And this is like a good starting point always. At this time, we didn't have a clear idea of who our ICP or who our customer was as well. Like we knew that it was small businesses, but that's very broad, right? There are 35 million small businesses in US alone, and globally it's even more than that. So our messaging, and for nostalgia's sake, I'm actually going to share my other window here. Give me one moment. I went to archive.org.
Yeah, I was actually trying to look at a Wayback Machine to see.
Yeah, so I couldn't find the oldest snapshot for some reason. That one's not working, but this one's like kind of early 23, I believe. Yeah, June 2023.
Uh-huh.
And then the messaging was similar around this time. But our messaging started with like value prop. So your AI phone agent, right? So it's an agent. The whole term agent was still getting coined at this point. Now we hear agent thrown everywhere, right? At this time, like a new concept. And we were still iffy about, are people going to understand what agent even means in this context? So we had to kind of like back that up with the tagline was like, answers your phone calls for your business 24/7. There's actually an interactive portion here on the right side that's not playing right now. Just
Oh, okay.
but then, oh, there we go. I guess I can.
Yeah.
So the framing or at that time was like introducing the newest member of your team, a friendly, efficient, conversational AI. And we described what it does, right? And what some of the benefits were, like one of the key ones, no missed calls. That was one of the big things that would resonate directly with the audience on the other end. Doesn't matter if they understood the technology, doesn't matter if they understood the platform or not. If they have a pain point where they're missing phone calls, this is something that would get them more curious to look further into the platform. Right? So that was a big one. The other one was natural language understanding. Again, we just talked about how these models can understand anything free form, and it wasn't just like keyword based account for account type of deal. And we wanted to emphasize that because at that time, this was magical. A lot of people didn't know about these generative AI based systems. And when we told them that you don't have to ask the questions the same exact way, you can ask them anyway. Like our training process was like, we had a knowledge base. You could ask, you would put in like questions and answers, right? And then during demo calls and customer calls, something we kept getting asked again and again was like, what happens if the customer asks the question differently? And when we told them that it doesn't even matter, as long as the agent understands the context, it will respond right answer. Their minds would be blown at that point. It was fascinating to see that growth. That being said, at that point, our messaging was very, I would almost say vague. Our ICP was not clear. So we're trying to, as you can see, trusted by business where we're trying to go with a much wider thing, was catering to all sorts of different potential businesses. Now we did have customers like early on here, we were highlighting some of the key industries they were coming from, again, some quotes, logos and whatnot. And this is one part that has stuck with our website for a long time. I think we removed it recently, but we realized that there's value for both sides, for businesses as well as for customers, right? And clear listed out just so there's a clarity around that. And so positioning was very wide, as you can see, and this has morphed quite a lot over time, but I'll pause for any comments or if you have any questions around there.
Yeah, no, I love
Actually,
it.
yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add a couple of things. In terms of ICP, everything goes back to product market fit. That's the first thing when you launch a product. And it's not a binary thing. It's a spectrum. And we had about 1,000 businesses sign. We launched our beta. And from that, over the course of almost a month and a half or two, we onboarded about 30 customers. And directly engaging with those SME customers, there was pure excitement because at that point, all the early adopters, they were already utilizing GPT and they were fascinated by the possibility. And we still have some of those customers to today, right? They've been using the tool. And we were zooming in, zooming out, and trying to understand our customers to cater our messaging based on our interaction with them and understanding their pain points and where we can add value. So I think a lot of early messaging kind of goes back to their pain points and how the product was built to support them.
Yeah, I love the fact that you start a bit broader and that just also get more feedback as well to always refine. And at the beginning, when maybe you had those first 30 customers, I think you mentioned, how did you start to gather that feedback? Was it just high touch conversations that you've had?
Yeah.
Or did you collect feedback at any other points?
It had to be. From day one, our idea was this is going to be a PLZ motion and a self-serve motion. We want people to come in and build their own AI agents, right? And that is our mission. And that's our product is shaped to do that over the course of the last 2.5 years. We've spent a lot of time, energy, and effort simplifying the platform because making it a self-serve platform means it's almost like making everyone an engineer so that they can build their agent, right?
Yeah.
So simplifying the platform is a key thing. But yeah, early on, it was high touch point, and it was also necessary because we really wanted to understand their pain points and what they were trying to use it for. Almost that helped us shape the product in some capacity too.
Yeah. All right, very good. What's this? Is this another iteration?
Yeah, so this was, I think, early 2024. And as you can see, like we were very experimental. Most of us being like technical folks in the team, we were not shy of trying new positioning, trying new messaging to see how the audience resonates with that messaging, right? This was one that was performing really well, actually. We went with the framing of all-in-one call answering platform. And this kind of goes against the typical grain of niche down, be as focused as you can be. Instead, we were going like a much wider all in one, and here's everything for a call answering platform. This one resonated a lot with our end customers because first, I think one of the key things here was we clearly stated who it was for. Again, it was still big for small and medium sized businesses, that massive pool of businesses. But then just seeing that gave people that confidence that when they come here, if they can find themselves in one of these buckets, hey, I'm a small business owner or operator, medium sized business, they would say, okay, let me put more into this. And then AI automatically answers your phone calls. We started changing some other parts. This part was interactive. So you could go between these different tabs and see different screenshots for every single part of the platform. And
Yeah.
I think this painted a good picture for the end customers because they could visually see what they were. The transcript part shows you like live transcripts coming up. But even at this point, and as you can see, as we scroll down, we were still wide, but then we were trying to make it more relatable to the businesses that would
Yeah.
come in, especially for the main ICP that we were targeting.
Yeah.
We started adding stats, more social proof, more pretty much everything, including
Yeah.
platform on that. And this was a good point. And again, the frequently asked questions. A lot of we started like realizing that a lot of the customers are asking the same exact things again and again, and those kind of went front and center. So goal with our landing page was to provide enough information so that people didn't have any objections or blockers to continue to the next step. In our case, it was signing up as a self-serve.
Yeah. I'm curious about one main change that I see from like in the previous version. I don't know if you had intermediate changes, but you don't mention AI in the main H1 here. Was it because maybe you realized that people weren't ready yet to see it as completely AI and maybe you needed to dial it back down or why?
Yeah, I think throughout time, we've added AI, removed AI. We were experimenting with different variations. Something we realized though was at that point, all the companies we saw out there, AI was the thing, right? AI was the core focus. Hey, we're an AI this, AI that. But
AI powered.
we realized that if we were, yeah, exactly, AI powered this, AI first this, right? And what we realized was instead of AI being the primary value prop or like the primary seller, if we could paint a clear picture in terms of what our platform provides, with AI just being a tool to make that happen, that was painting a better picture. And then it even got to a point where the hype cycle with AI was in full motion, and people were just every time they saw something with AI, people are just dismissing things without even fully diving into what the platform does, just because I almost got a bad rep because everyone was throwing the word AI, but not delivering properly. So
Yeah.
instead of that, we wanted to emphasize what the platform does, in this case, answers calls.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And it was also simplifying the messaging. It was also part of our experimentation in terms of what sticks. What do people look for? Because you're not entering a saturated market. You're not selling soap. This is a brand new product, a brand new concept. And we didn't know what would people even look for or search for to find us or the tool similar to us. So this was also a broad experimentation. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that, yeah, everyone was starting to use AI in their messaging. Were there already competitors popping up at the time?
I would say around 2023, end of 2023 is when we started seeing a lot of movement in this space. Initially, we were solving a technology problem, which was just getting these voice agents to work reliably was challenging. You could make a decent sounding demo relatively easily, but then as soon as you put it into real world, things would fall apart in all sorts of. And we saw a lot of companies that were selling fluff as well, where they would say, hey, voice agents, this, that. And then their typical flow was you go through like a bunch of sales calls where they would show you pre-recorded demos. I mean, we even sat for some just to see what the space was like. And at the end, they would say, yeah, this will take us a few months to build and whatnot. So they were like testing the market before building the product. In our case, like we'll build the product as we test the market. And for that reason, we were seeing competition from different angles. A lot of the times they were very bare bones compared to where we were, just because I think we just got in this early on and we were heavily technology biased. So we were like excited about just getting these AI agents to actually work in the real world. And as things changed, one thing was clear. We had to be adaptive with how fast the industry was moving. The base layer of AI was moving so quickly. It went from us seeing major changes every quarter to every month to every week to these days, it's every day we see multiple announcements about something new coming out. So we actually reoriented our whole company to cater for that adaptiveness. We rewrote our whole platform. This is actually the current version is actually the third major rewrite of everything. So we've almost rebuilt our company 3 times in the process in some ways. Again, some of the knowledge and learning has stayed around. But what we wanted to kind of go for was us being able to adapt as things change on the bottom layer quickly. For that reason, we were always kind of state of the art, always bleeding edge. Some like new model comes out, some new voice technology, speech technology comes out. Would be one of the first ones to experiment, do R&D, validate it, put it in production. So for that reason, even though we were seeing competitors, by the time competitors had a product that was like decently working, the base layer had already moved like 2 steps, and we were the ones that were like constantly not just catching up, but like really paving the path. And then what happened was slowly over time, we also saw that some of the fundamentals you needed to build voice agents started becoming solved problems, right? Like initially, function calling on the LLM layer was not a thing. So we had to find some clever ways to be able to programmatically call things from the responses that these LLMs give. And then the other thing was hallucination was a big issue. We all probably remember early days of where you ask something and completely go off trails. And we have to build like multiple layers to ground that information, have like checks and balances to make sure that the agent doesn't just give out random nonsense.
Yeah.
So we were adapting over time. And what we saw with the competition was there were like 2 types of competitors, right? There were, I call these like tier 1 companies. I would say almost like there are probably less than 10 tier 1 companies today in the voice AI space. And we're one of them where they build all of their technology ground up. So everything above the model layer, speech stack, interruption handling, and all sorts of little things that kind of go into this pipeline, they were building it themselves. And then the other type of company we see is they're using the technology provided by one of these tier 1 companies, whether that's, so there are companies like Vapi, Bland, or one of them. They would use these platforms to build a UX layer on top, right? In our case, the closest analog would be the white label platform where anyone can like take our white label platform, start their own like AI solutions, voice solutions company. And a lot of the times these days, what we see, what most people see as our competitors could just be our clients using our white label platform. So we're seeing like evolution on both fronts, and it's exciting to see this grow up.
Yeah. And there are also key differentiation. This actually touches on the messaging too as our product evolved, right? We were, at one point, I think this was back in 23 or 24, we were saying, hey, come build your AI agent in less than 5 minutes messaging that draw the wrong crowd and got us in a lot of trouble because the mass market started coming in with wrong expectation. They didn't understand the limitations of technology, and we were unable to explain that clearly. And people would come in, pay for the platform, and they would charge. And it was an expensive lesson. But then the key thing that we learned through that process was it's really important what you put out there. First, we need to really refine our ICP and then prepare a messaging that resonates with the ICP. That's when we started saying, build your AI agent. We started attracting the builder persona, these early adopters, slightly semi-tech savvy people who want to tinker and build things out. That's how the word voice agent builder, we have that right now too. That's how the platform evolved from such and such platform to a builder platform where we were naturally attracting builders. And one of the micro pivots we did was we saw really good success with this builder persona. And instead of becoming a voice AI agent platform for dental space or medical practices, we decided to double down as a horizontal tooling and platform layer so that other businesses and builders can build solutions on top of us, go attack different verticals and different use cases and different segments. So our positioning naturally is from build your agent in 5 minutes to it's a platform to build your voice AI solution. You could be individual builders and business owners. Go ahead and build it yourself. Or if you want to white label it, you're an agency. You can build a solution relatively quickly. That's one of the differentiating factors. It's an all-in-one platform. You don't have to pass through 5 different tools and maintain them to provide a solution. Instead, we provide end-to-end solution, right? From training an agent and integrating and testing and deployment, you don't have to go buy a separate Twilio number. You can purchase phone numbers from our own platform. And then we started extending our platform. We added a free CRM, very powerful CRM. And then we also added multiple channels of deployment along with phone calls. The same agent can now be deployed as a Discord agent, a chatbot, or a WhatsApp agent. So this expansion and product expansion and messaging, everything was shifting and changing to attract more builders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I want to touch on a couple of things on what we just discussed. So the first one is spoke about competitors and your positioning, especially for these builders. If I asked you, what are your, I don't know, 2 or 3 differentiated value themes, what would you say? What makes you different from the competition? And if you can think about how they changed across the years as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is something that's constantly evolving as well, because as a platform, there are a lot of things that set us apart from most of the other ones that we've seen out there. But then which ones are the key highlights? That part keeps changing, sometimes based on the audience that we're looking for,
Yeah.
sometimes some other factors. Right now, the 3 key points we mentioned on the hero section here, I would say they are some of the bigger differentiators. First is quick training. We realized that, especially with these builder personas, what we were seeing was they were not always building these agents for themselves. Instead, they had like clients that they were building it for, and which meant that it was almost like an agency type of model on their end where they would work with clients and build solutions for them. And quick training was always, it was something that wasn't readily available out there. Now with like tools like VAPI and N8N, we saw like most of these builders, they were like connecting like 5, 6 different pieces. Here's a knowledge base, like some third database,
Yeah.
and we're going to N8N to piece that together with Cloud API or VAPI. And it was like, what made for a very good demo did not scale out. As soon as you start getting like thousands of calls per day, things would break down on their end. And the other part of this was that changing anything was painful. Training your agent, it's just a prompt at the end of the day, right? Like you just instruct your agent on how to handle calls. Even that for an end user to be able to go in and kind of change things was painful, because you make a tiny little change and like that would cause unexpected side effects, right? So there was like that part was, so with our platform, we realized we want to focus on the training portion and we want to make
Yeah.
sure it's easy to train. Now, for nostalgic reasons, I can show you where we evolved from. The previous iteration of our platform looked like, let's go to Mars here. It was a drag and drop builder similar to N8N, right? So where you would have a bunch of different scenarios. So like when a caller asks for a refund, you would ask a question, another question, send an email, right? And you would like drag and drop a bunch of different tools to create a flow. And what we realized was like, this was the state. Even today, if you look at a lot of voice platforms, this is how you train an agent. But then the limitation with this is that you cannot, in real world, conversations are so dynamic, right? Like I can jump from one topic to another. Even during a phone call, I might be asking about billing, but then I might say, hey, wait, hold on a second. How about this other completely unrelated thing? And this interface was very limiting in terms of creating those type of dynamic workflows. And so for that reason, we were like, okay, you know what? We need to make it like easy. So the current state of the art is just a document-based interface. So when I say document-based interface, it's literally like Google Docs, right? We realized everybody uses some sort of document software in one form or another, and they're already like familiar with just typing in instructions. So
I just want to be able to copy paste.
the experience we were trying to get is exactly what you said, Chris, which is if you are hiring a receptionist or someone in your call center, you're probably going to give them some instructions, whether that's an email or standard operating procedure document, something, right? We just want you to be able to copy paste that here and it just works. That's the interface that kind of changed. Now I'm going to quickly go back and talk about the other two. Well, the other one is production ready. We just talked about it, right? Our platform can handle as many calls as it takes. We have a auto scaling infrastructure, meaning even if you get like thousands, millions of calls at the same time, that's not going to be an issue for the platform. And this was the bottleneck. A lot of these N8N based setups would work really well for like 5 calls, 10 calls at the same time, but then it would start breaking down. Ours is like fully production ready. At this point, we have customers like as small as like mom and pop barbershops to like Fortune 40 companies, right? And can handle that scale. Third one, the big one, is build for free. What we realize with the market is most platforms are not very confident about the product. So they hide their platform behind paywalls and behind sales calls and all sorts of other things. Oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Internet. Okay. And we realized that, especially as like a new emerging technology, we wanted people to be confident in what they were getting into before they commit to it, right? So for that reason, our platform is free to use. So you can sign up at any point, create an agent, train everything, test it out. And then when you're sure that it's ready to go, that's when you can subscribe to a plan if you want to deploy it to a phone number or something like that. And we wanted to highlight those key points here. There are a ton of other things. Like I could probably go on for days, but I'll pause
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, maybe I'll add a couple of things there. I think in terms of differentiation, clearly, or this could even be the summary of what Kaushal was saying, the all-in-one aspect of the platform, where you can quickly build, train, deploy, integrate, all in one platform. I think that's one of the key differentiator for this builder persona. And then the second thing is the no-code interface that we saw here from the drag and drop flow builder, like anything type of flow builder. We moved to a document interface. And that document interface is so powerful that you can describe logic and workflows and decision making and integrations and how to handle different scenarios all within that document as if you're explaining to a human being. So simplifying that interface, simplifying the training and the no-code interface, that's the other superpower we have in the competitive space. And then also, I think we've spent a lot of time really refining the builder experience. When somebody goes to our platform meets you halfway as you're training things because how is the agent doing in general in terms of latency, performance? We give you all sorts of bells and whistles and meet you halfway. We have a thing called magic button. Maybe Kaushal, you want to show that, where we briefly explain your business and your use case and everything. And then the agent, there is another AI engine that will develop your prompt for your business so that you don't have to stare at a blank canvas for
You don't have to be a prompt engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. We meet you halfway. Similarly, there's a lot of visibility tools because one of the things we've learned in the last 2.5 years is businesses are skeptic with AI tools. And the best way to build that trust is visibility. We show people what happened during a call, how the agent did in general, all the way from call recording to call summaries to what tools were used, transcription of entire thing. And that has helped us build that trust. So I think those are some of the key differentiators.
Very cool. I wanted to ask you something specific on this value proposition header section. So you've clearly focused on your 3 differentiators. And like from my perspective, knowing what you just mentioned, this is clearly targeting the persona of the builder, right? Because if you're basically saying what you are and how you're different, which presupposes that they are already solution aware, meaning they are already aware of what other platforms do, right? So is that why you decided to go super specific on this kind of persona here on the homepage?
Yes, that's a really good question. So as you remember from our previous version of the website, things were wide and we were kind of making people aware of the solution. I love that you used the phrase solution aware because this is actually a big differentiator when it comes to the positioning and messaging, right? And now that we have a much clear heading of who we're targeting and who the messaging is, or we can already like assume some of the things about them, right? We can assume that they know what agents are. They know what these things do and what kind of direct value they provide. And a lot of the times when these builders come to our platform, they're not looking for like the high level of what these agents can do. Instead, they're looking for, why should I pick this platform over all the other ones out there? And we're trying to directly address those concerns in our primary hero section here. And that kind of comes with, first, like we realized this new builder persona is a little more technical than the rest, which means we can start using more and more technical terms. Initially, our messaging was very like low tech, like so catered to our business owners, and now we can use things like automate or even some of the things words we take for granted.
Production ready even.
Exactly, production ready, right? Like that, they'll throw a regular business owner off, but someone who's looking for specifically this, they'll appreciate that. So yes, the message is definitely evolved for that specific audience.
Yeah. So if, let's say, like a company is wondering whether or not they know enough to be able to use such a specific language, or whether to maybe stay a bit more open because they have more ICP, what would you say is the telltale sign that you already know about your persona this much and you can focus? What was it for you? Like the sign that was, okay, we can focus on this persona now?
first, being data driven helps a lot, right? We use tools like Post Hog, of course, Google Analytics, and all sorts of other little tools that give us insights into how our customers are interacting. And there are some clear metrics we can look at. In our case, the CTA, the big blue button, is pointing towards signing up in the platform. And then a lot of the times when we like do A/B testing on our platform, we can clearly see which messaging resonates with people and which messaging converts them to signed up users. So that's always like a good compass to guide yourself by. But then I think your question is more around like, how do you decide that your persona already understands some things versus not, right? And I think there's no right or wrong answer to that. One thing I would say is zooming out and looking at your whole customer journey helps. For example, a lot of our clients that come into our landing page, they'll either find us in Google, or they might be coming through Facebook ads. In these cases, what we notice is like, first, whatever Facebook ad shows up and whatever messaging that Facebook ad has is going to attract that type of persona, right? And then when they click on that ad and drop into the landing page, you want to make sure that there's a continuity of that messaging. As in, if you're using like technical terms, and if you're using terms only builders would understand on the ad, you can almost assume that the person that comes through that funnel to your landing page is going to understand some of these more technical terms. So you can get a gauge for what kind of messaging
Yeah,
you can.
very good signals for how to match expectations.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
And,
all
yeah.
expectations.
And along with what Kaushal was saying, I think what we did was a little bit of soul searching. We went back, we did extensive cohort analysis of who was getting benefit out of the platform, right? Over the course of the last 2.5 years, we dig down into each of those customers. And this idea of builder persona came into existence when we looked at our existing customers, the customers who got excited, who built it on their own. In some scenarios, we even offered help and they're like, nah, I got this.
Yeah.
And that was the reason we're like, okay, we are seeing success again and again with this persona. And we really started writing all the traits, what this persona looks like. And
Yeah.
it was a no-brainer in the end. We're like, okay, this is where we're finding success and let's double down. And I think this persona, it's going to evolve. Some of this has to do with the technological capability and what it can offer today as the underlying models start evolving and changing as we transition from early adopters to mass market. I think we're going to gradually change our positioning there too. But for now, and in considering what we saw in the last 2.5 years, builder persona is super excited. They understand the technology, they can build, and I say, and we can enable them to further distribute this technology out to other businesses.
Yeah, you said something interesting twice just now, which is the word excited. What told you that these customers were excited? Was it getting on calls with them? Maybe emails that they sent, specific words? What was it? Just for wondering how
absolutely.
other companies can understand, okay, like this is a persona maybe that I need to double down on.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe I need to collect this kind of data to understand.
Yeah. So there were a few signs. One, we used to do a lot of demo calls to understand the pain points because nothing beats interacting with customers. People always talk about do the things that don't scale. And one of the things is talk to your customers. It's that simple. And you would see their eyes spark, honestly. They'd be like, my goodness, Echowin is such and such on steroids. They have been testing all these different tools. And with what we offered and what they could build with it, they were clearly super excited, right? And we saw that to date, we have customers that come into our demo calls and they're like, I'm frustrated. I've tested out 15 different tools. I put them on production, only work like 60, 70% of the time, and I'm losing customers. That is a common sentiment even to date. And then when we show them our platform and the spaces we've been serving and successfully delivering, and customers, they, first of all, just based on the pure capacity and capability and feature set of the tool, they get excited and then they put things in production and they come back happy. So I think one of the signals is demo calls and you see that excitement when they see the capabilities. Second is they put it on production, use it, and then they find success and then they're happy.
Can I actually add more?
Yeah.
There's actually one other metric that gave us a good idea of who is finding success with the platform. All the things that Ashish mentioned are very important. But when we dug through the data and did cohort analysis, like we were trying to find bands of people that were sticky for a while. So we were trying to find stickies, right? So there were a lot of people that would come into the platform, sign up, even pay for subscription few months in, they would like not push it in production, where their uses would taper off. But then there was a band of builder persona. They would build a agent on their own without any handholding from our end, like Ashish was mentioning, and they would put it in production. They would have like high call volumes and stuff, but then they would be sticky over time. We had customers that were around for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And I think the first, I would recommend anyone who's like maybe starting a new business or a new company to make sure you have metrics that are being collected, even if you're not using them right now, because there'll probably be a point in time where you're gonna need to like dig into your data. And at that point, you'd rather have more data that you don't need than not enough data. And in our case, it's like a similar story. But yeah, that stickiness factor. You want to see how sticky your customers are. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah. Very nice. Before we jump into the white label page, I wanted to ask, when it comes to these, first, actually, a quick idea that I just had. Have you tried, because I was looking at the call to action and you have, try the product, you have a video demo. Just like out of curiosity, have you ever tried having like a live chat example that people can click on and just maybe, I don't know, interact with the chat just to like literally show the product?
Yeah, we went through a bunch of different variations of the hero section as well, the top part of the landing page. At one point, we had a somewhat interactive, we even had an interactive voice chat where you click on it button and you could talk to the agent right there.
Nice. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
And we saw different types of interactivity with different types of setups. And then one of the reasons we've gone to this, the current format, which I have, is because we realized that at this point, the expectation from people that come to our platform, especially with this builder persona, is that they already understand how these agents work. They already understand some of the capabilities and limitations. We want to provide them with uh, the type of information that would supplement all the information they already have to make their decision easier. And in this case, some of the key things were like, of course, that quote from Son Porter that has been up there, that's been valuable because it paints a picture in terms of what do I get from this type of thing? And then the demo video, the reason we have it there is because a lot of the time, first, just assume that your customers are lazy. I'm not saying all of our customers are lazy, but just assume that, because people want to do the least amount of work to get the most amount of information. And we realized a video demo helps paint a picture end to end in terms of what the platform looks like, how it works, and everything in between. And all the other little elements we have there, we have the trusted by badges, right? Like kind of shows like builds trust. And then we have a personalized demo booking link for people that kind of want to go the route of not self-serve. Hey, I have a problem. I just want a solution route, right? So there's that as well. Going back to the topic of the interactive chatbot, we saw that it was effective. I think it did give a good it did work for what it was intended to work. But then we realized for our current audience, it didn't add too much new value.
Yeah.
What we have here right now.
And probably thinking of this builder persona, they probably want just to put their hands on the product and try it, right? So probably it's just easier to like give them access to the free version, let them try it and see what happens.
Absolutely. And that's the time to deployment is one of the metrics that we care about. I want to make sure, especially if you're like an agency and are planning on building these agents for a lot of different businesses, you want to make sure that there's not a whole lot of resistance, because we've seen some N8N workflows from some of our customers that they were using before they came to our platform. And honestly, it's scary. Like some of them are like, there are so many things within that workflow and everything is connected in weird ways. We want to reduce that friction and complexity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, let's jump on the white label pages. Can you tell us who this page is for, how the product works, if it's different, and then we can look at the copy.
Absolutely. And I think the answer to the questions you just asked is right here on our hero section. Label page, people come in with a little different set of expectations than our primary landing page. And here, the persona doesn't change a whole lot. It is still builders but here we're like a little more focused on the specifics of these builder personas. Because typically when we say builder persona, it could be a business owner. It could just be some guy that just got out of university and is thinking about building and selling agents. But then when it comes to white label, we have a little more scope view of who's like more eligible for this. And in this case, we just explicitly call them out. The white label platform for digital agencies, IT team, and consultants to create AI solutions for any industry, right? So that clearly paints a picture for who this is for and why they would want to use our platform, which is to create AI solutions. Now, then like the other question you asked was like, how does that work? It works by you train agents with plain English, deploy instantly, and scale without limits, right? So when people like come to the white label page, it's almost like you want to put yourself in their shoes, like the ideal customer that's going to come to this page, and think from their perspective in terms of what they are curious about, right? In this case, they would most likely be curious about how this works. What do I get out of it, right? And we list out some of the key points down here again. Train your agent in plain English, deploy to phone, chat, and Discord. We actually also have WhatsApp now. We should probably update this to self. Your brand, domain, and pricing. So this is going to be important, right? Like for a white label platform, we want to make sure that they understand that they can have their own branding, domain, pricing, everything. And then unlimited sub accounts included. This is a big one because a lot of white label platforms charge you per account that you like onboard under your umbrella. But then we also realize that a lot of these agencies, like this being like a brand new technology and everything, their clients are going to want some sort of a demo or a trial or something. We wanted to facilitate that so that you don't have to shell out some amount of dollars to just to give them a trial account. So we highlight that. And we also notice like one of the biggest concerns for agencies trying to white label is like, hey, can I afford it? What's the pricing? So we put that front center on the right side here. So that's the thought process here in terms of how we curated this page. Again, this is probably going to go through a lot of evolution.
And then perhaps I want to zoom out a little bit and go back to ICP because this is directly related to the builder persona. And this was a natural evolution of builder persona in some capacity. Last year, when a lot of builders started using our tool, we saw a lot of requests from people saying, hey, I really like the tool. Can I white label it? And every other person was asking to white label our tool. And we're like, okay, I know in the end, the problem we're trying to solve is accessibility. How do we make this technology accessible to this mass market? Now that means how do we amplify our distribution? If there are builders who know how to build and they have industry expertise and expertise across different use cases, if they are willing to partner with us, then let's use that layer, their expertise and our technology to create a mass distribution. That was the idea of white label. And then the builder persona obviously resonated once again. And we actually built this and launched this sometime in late April. And ever since, we've had multiple agencies reach out to us. There was an extensive wait list. And from that wait list, we've onboarded selected number of agencies up until now. And they're using it to further distribute. But yeah, it was a natural evolution of the builder persona and expansion of our ICT.
Yeah. So now looking at this, at the above the fold section in the value proposition, one question that I have, especially after looking the rest of the website, and I don't know how guys you drive traffic to this page, whether it's from paid and people only see this first, but like coming from the rest of the website, my main question is, are these still voice agents or is agents that can do basically anything else? Can they send messages? Can they book appointments, or is this strictly voice agent still?
They are, so they can be voice agents, but it's more than that, right? So you can deploy phone, chat, Discord, and they can do schedule appointments. They can do all the things. And the reason we don't explicitly mention the direct values here is because at this point, we cannot assume that they understand that part. There are some things we kind of almost take for given in the sense that if someone's playing around with AI agents and they're looking for a white label solution, they most likely understand the fact that, hey, these are the things you can do with it, right? Try to amplify that information on our solutions section here. So there are like dedicated landing pages for all of these almost use cases, and like really into why, how you can use it for that specific purpose. But then for this landing page, you want to keep it.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably, for someone who has the context of the whole website, maybe it's nice to think of those and then lands on this page and might think, oh, is it a different product? Is it the same? So that was like my only kind of disconnect so far. But yeah, I like the focus on the defining here, digital agency teams and consultants, the different benefits here with the green check marks. And also the pricing as well, because if I put myself in like my shoes, as you said, pricing is very important. So I like that you didn't stick to, because a lot of companies stick to the same above the fold, same structure, just because it's the template of the theme of the website. But you actually tailored it to actual motivation from that people that come to this page have. And so I really like it.
Thank you. Yes, and we were not afraid to kind of take a pathway because we realized there is like pros and cons of going with the tried and tested, right? There are landing these best practices, and this is probably the reason why you see most landing pages look very similar, other than like the theming and everything, right? The content usually end up being the same, and honestly, it's a good thing because people are already familiar with that structure. Their brain can scan through that page and quickly absorb that information. But also at the same time, I think we were thinking more from like first principles in terms of what would the person on the other side be looking for when they arrive here? And then we started from there.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of research did you guys conducted, or what kind of feedback did you have to build this page?
I think once again, we went back to interviews.
Yep.
As these agencies came in, we just sat down with them, understood their needs, and the interaction with them is primarily what, even we talked about pricing, and pricing is one of the topics for agencies because they're price conscious. It's a new technology and distribution is tricky and they want to understand customers, their own customers. So yeah, based on some of the questions that were repeatedly asked, we decided to make that decision.
Yeah.
There's something we even did. You're probably familiar with these AI note-taking apps, right? We use Fireflies internally. We actually in the transcripts from our Fireflies calls with some of the agencies, and we were like, "Hey, Claude, find me all top questions here," and then we use that as information as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's the kind of context and like knowledge base that you should build to structure your marketing messaging.
Absolutely, long way.
I also like where at the bottom you have the kind of comparison between building in-house and doing white label. Did you get those kind of pain points and the elements of the table from those calls as well?
Yeah, what we saw was builders were frustrated with the other options to deliver solutions right now. And a lot of times we saw that N8N paired with something like Vappy was the route that most people were taking. But there were a lot of pain points with that, a lot of limitations, and it wasn't a full product. What I mean by that is you were like piecing together like 6 or 7 things to create something, and the thing with nothing wrong with that, right? Like I think that goes like really far. You can build like a system that works really well in 70-80% of the cases, but then for the last 20-30% of the cases, that's where we see all the edge cases, right? Like we're all these one-off little things that could go wrong during a call. That's where things would break down, and it was just not a consistent experience for end users. And we wanted to take all the pain points that we were hearing about and just put it in a little easy to read comparison table. And some of the things like the development time, we were talking to some team that had spent the last year and a half building their agent system in N8N, and they would say, "Oh, it's got limitations, this, that." Right? I mean, here it's like, "Hey, it's ready to go out of the box," and then they would have to hire consulting teams or engineers in some cases if they wanted to kind of scale it beyond that, and then the infrastructure, right? As they started getting more call volume, that was always a pain. That's where things broke down. And then compliance and security, a lot of times that was not even a consideration. Multi-channel, or a lot of times if they build a N8N agent for chat or voice, that's what it was limited to, and you would have to build another flow for chat. And there was like a lot of disconnect there as well, right? And then maintenance, updates, all those things. I think these are important things that all the builders that were coming to our platform were thinking about, but there was like, nobody talks about this publicly. And we were just like, okay.
Yeah. Awesome. One thing that I don't know if it's like it was intention or not, because I saw you have it on the homepage, which is some social proof. So on the homepage, you have a lot of testimonials, a lot of logos and stuff. Why did you decide not to really include any here unless you have them? Oh, no, you don't. Like on the white label page.
Yeah. That's actually one of our action items.
Yeah,
we have plenty of social proof, and I've been telling the team, "Hey, let's add these testimonials."
Yeah, because I was looking at under resources, you have the reviews and mentions page. You have a lot of stuff there. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, just wondering, and also not strictly related to the white label page, but when you were talking about N8N, it made me think about it. Do you guys have or ever built any competitor comparison pages? Or in the past, I don't think I'm seeing them in the navigation. I'm just hearing.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because that is an active effort internally right now. We are building with them, and I think even for search engine optimization and just clearing up some of these differences, it's very important. So I wish this is something I wish we had done sooner than later. But yes, we are actively working on that, so we should have those. I think those are pretty powerful,
especially for now all the LLM searches, right? The G or whatever. It's got a different name.
Yeah.
And what's your stance on calling out competitors? What's your approach? How do you approach like saying, okay, it's another solution. We are a different solution. We do this better or we do this worse.
Maybe I'll quickly start there. I think the voice AI space probably is one of the most proven application of Gen AI today. A lot of companies are popping out and they are solving different vertical spaces and use cases. And this is an instant opportunity for everyone there's a lot to be done in this space. And there are a lot of good tools out there. Some of the tools that we talked about earlier, those are amazing tools. It's just that our ICP and the type of experience we want to give to our builder is a no code, quick deployment, and reliability to the things we focus on. If you want to be super granular, take different routes, you want to maintain everything, there are other tools. We really don't have anything against other tools. This is a space it's growing up and it's a community. And
Yeah.
some of the challenges this community is facing today is there is a lot of noise. Because it's never been easier to build tools when you think about it. You can quickly build a voice AI agent in a matter of a couple of days, but then putting that in production without testing and verifying and validating systems is a wrong approach. I think that's something I'd like to call out. There are some tools out there. What that does is that gets the business community frustrated. That's the reason we have customers coming to us saying, I've tested out 15 tools. I almost don't want to test anymore for Jurassic 2025. I want to come back to GenAI in 2026. We've had conversations like that. So if somebody is building in this space, it's super important that, every time you're plugging in LLM, make sure you're testing things, you're validating things are reliable. And let's not do any disservice to this business community. That'd be my one thing. The other thing, this kind of goes back to messaging. People have been saying, replace your AI BDR, replace your AI this. I don't think that's the right messaging and the technology is not there yet. It will be. We see it being in the driver's seat. It's just a matter of time. Even my job is going to be automated. It's just a matter of time. Obviously, transitioning into a mass market is going to take some time because how slow the industry is. But yeah, that's another messaging. We see some competitors take that approach. Obviously, that's not the right thing to say. And I think they're going to attract a lot of customers because of the sentiment. But the second thing, it's also not the reality of the situation in terms of what technology can deliver today. So yeah, those are some of my quick thoughts. I'll pass it to Kaushal.
Great.
Yeah. The thing Ashish mentioned in terms of like the differences in approaches that competitors have to us, but I'll talk about our general guidance or general like approach in terms of dealing with the competitors, right? First, I always tell my team, hey, don't be like hyper focused on what the competition does, just because first, this is like a very new industry, emerging market, emerging technology, meaning nobody has their shit together. Everyone's figuring out which path to go, how to position, how to message. Like some of these things, like everyone's trying to see what like sticks and what doesn't, and everyone's experimenting in their own ways. And sometimes when you get too hyper focused on competition, what happens is you start focusing on the wrong things, like something that's experimental for them, right? You're gonna get narrowed down to one specific thing they're trying, and hey, they're trying it, it's got to be good and it's got to be working. But no, actually, we've seen it doesn't mean ignore your competitors. You want to keep an eye to see where the state of everything is. And what we see even with competitors is like a lot of the times we find some of our competitors taking inspiration from some things we do, and we see them experimenting. And sometimes some of the things we see, for example, on their landing page or wherever it might be, that we think is, oh, this is amazing that they did that, just goes away in a week. And then we're like, okay, I guess that didn't work out, right? I tell my team all the time to not be hyper focused on competition and kind of think from customer perspective first, because the best source of truth we have right now is our interactions with customers. They're the ones telling us, hey, this is working, this is not working, this is the type of information I want, this is the type of information I already know. And we want to work backwards from that, not backwards from what someone else is doing, because they might have a different heading, they might have a completely different customer base. So yeah, don't get too hung up on competitors is what I would say.
Yeah, and I think it shows from your approach to fast iteration, continuous positioning, rollout. And that's also one of the kind of last questions that I want to ask as well is, what's your best advice for companies, maybe even early stage, on how to roll out positioning fast and test it out in the market? How do you do it? What's your, I don't know if you had a 1 to 3 step process.
Yeah, and there's no hard and fast rule around this. And there's also I don't think there's one right way to do this either, because there are a lot of variables, right? And depending on your market, the type of your product, your sales motion, your acquisition channels, there are so many different things that could change. But in a meta level, be adaptive, right? Don't be afraid to change your messaging and try new things. But then I would make sure that it is somewhat data driven. There are amazing tools like PostHog, and there's all sorts of analytics tools these days. PostHog, for example, they even let you see your customer journey recording. They'll hide all the input boxes and whatnot, so you're not like stalking them, but you will be able to see them kind of scrolling through your landing page, like looking at different parts. So you can use that type of data to help you guide decisions around, hey, is this messaging sticking? Is this not sticking? And on top of that, A/B testing. These days, I think most platforms let you do A/B testing right out of the box. And depending on how you're building your landing pages, if that is an option, you might want to try like different variations, right? You might want to show half of your customers a certain messaging and half others different messaging. And then whatever your metric might be, that might be like signups maybe. So you see how many signups you're getting from those two messaging. Because sometimes what we think resonates with customers doesn't actually resonate as well. And
Yeah.
there's no other way to find out other than just trying it out, looking at the data.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every business is unique, right? So they're going to have to go through their own evolution. But in general, it comes down to product market fit and ICP and experimenting with different subsegments of ICP. When we talk about iteration, we talk a lot about product iteration, but product iteration should be driven by, in my opinion, iteration on the ICP and go-to-market side, see what resonates. And based on that, if you can improve your product, finding first paying customers. And in the world of AI, it's easy to build tools, but if you can validate and build tools that are vetted through and reliable, I think this is insane opportunity. This is probably the best time to build anything.
Yeah, totally. What's your best way or favorite way to test messaging, especially if you don't really have a lot of traffic? How could you do it?
If you do have some budget and can drive targeted traffic with paid acquisition channels like ads, there's this like almost narrative out there that says don't spend any money on ads till you absolutely have to. I would actually push back against that because with these paid acquisition channels like Facebook ads, for example, with a little bit of money, you can actually drive very highly targeted traffic that is directly in your ICP. You do want to understand your customer base and make sure you're driving the right type of people. But a quick way to validate messaging is definitely with these targeted channels where you know that the quality of traffic is good. And then the only variable is your messaging, right? So that way you can isolate the environment and make sure the messaging sticks. That's one. But again, like maybe you don't have that luxury, you don't have a budget for ads. In that case, I would say just talking to customers and have an interaction with them. A lot of the times when you get on one of these calls, again, this could be as simple as maybe you change the part of your customer journey to include a call. And as stupid as it sounds, if you're building like a product-led company or like a self-serve platform, it is important in the early stages because it's not for the conversion. Maybe you don't want a demo to be part of your conversion funnel, but to get these data points, to understand how your customer's thinking about it, it is important to like just hop on a call and keep note of all the questions they ask. Because usually people will either, as you're describing your product or your platform, they will either say, oh yeah, that part makes sense, that part makes sense. And then there'll be some part where their eyes will widen up and they'll be like hooked onto their screen. You want to take note of those parts. And I think then you work backwards from that.
Yeah. So you guys build AI agents, and I was wondering, just because it's something that I'm pretty curious and excited about, have you ever tried or built any way to do synthetic research, which is basically using AI to simulate your customer personas?
That is something we've experimented with different forms of that. As in, we use AI heavily internally. Everything from, let me actually show you something on our website. Similar. As a horizontal platform, we serve different industries, and there are so many ways you can use a AI agent for your business, right? So
Yeah.
what we've done is we've actually built some systems that automatically use AI to fill in the gap. So we don't have landing pages for every single use case, right? We do have a ton of industries and landing pages for them. But let's say we come up with something completely unique, and let's just say podcast. Yeah, let's just say podcast and see what it is. Now, what it does is, hey, if we already have a landing page for that, you'll actually get to that landing page. But then if there's no landing page for that, this agent is trained on the overall high level view of our platform, what we do, the offering and everything. And it can on the fly build these landing pages for your use case. And I know it's not exactly a customer persona study, but it's one of the tools we've built to help in the customer journey paint a good picture. I'm curious to see what it comes up with. Hopefully,
Yeah, and it's a nice example of rolling out stuff fast, as we were talking about.
Exactly. And now, as you can see, like this page did not exist just a few seconds ago, like that second.
Is it going to be live right after you build?
This doesn't get indexed by search engines just yet, but on our admin panel, we do have an option to quickly take this page live if we want to. There's an option as well. But what it does, created this image, created a header and everything, right? And there's even like the value props, like never miss a listener call, like interaction. I mean,
Yeah.
it like pinpointed specific things from that industry. And then it even says things like sponsor opportunity management. If you're not a podcaster, you don't care about sponsor opportunities, but if you are, then
Yeah.
this might matter, right?
Yeah.
But as you can see,
Yeah.
we lean
And then
heavily.
also, sorry,
Go
Kaushal.
ahead, Ashish.
No, I'll let you finish your thought.
I was just going to say, we lean heavily in terms of using AI, not just in our product, but internally as well. One of
Yeah.
our goals is to have a lean and mean team and amplify our efforts and workflows using AI, even internally. We dogfood a lot of our products. Our platform has a CRM. We switched away from some more expensive CRMs to our own, and we started using that. And
Eat
we
your
have
own dog food.
right.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to see how your product works. And we have a
Yeah.
internal bot called Mars that does things like we can just ask questions like, "Hey Mars, can you tell me how many customers we got yesterday?" Or I
Mm.
could say like, "Can you check our current sprint and tell me which tickets have been around for a long time?" Or can you summarize our project management? I can say, "Build me, hey, we're doing a campaign for hospitals in Houston. Can you build me a graphic for it?" And there's like a ton of things that Mars does, customer persona study and everything in the middle. So yes, we do lean heavily on AI.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that for our white label agency signups, we had about 250, 300 agencies.
Oh, Ashish, I think, I don't know, Chris, if you
Oh,
can
yeah.
hear.
No, it's mute.
Yeah, audio cut off.
Yeah.
Ashish, we cannot hear you. Oh, we
We
cannot hear
can.
you. Headphones ran out of battery or something.
Headphones died.
Maybe.
Yeah, we went a bit over time.
Yeah, hey,
Sorry about that.
hey,
It's my Bluetooth. It just got connected to phone. I'm so sorry about that. But I was
No problem.
going
No
ahead.
problem. We'll edit it out.
Yeah, with all those signups, I actually use deep research to do deep research on all those agencies and then build a persona. I build a document with persona and different segments, and based on that segments, where I'm actually running an outbound experiment based on that profile I developed, based on who all signed up, and did extensive research on them and enrich that data. So yeah, it's a clear example of like how you can utilize AI like GPT and Claude are my favorite tools.
Nice. I can hear an echo. You guys hear?
I hear it. I think it's switched.
You're hearing echo? Sorry.
Yeah. I think I had on my side like an echo cancellation, but I can't enable it for you guys now.
Let's do that too. Ashish, maybe if you click that little settings icon on the bottom left, there should be an option for echo cancellation. Not sure if it shows up. But
Good now.
Oh,
hello.
that's good. Sounds good now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I know we went a bunch overboard with time, but it's been a fascinating conversation. So I
Yeah, no, I
appreciate
loved it. Yeah, I love it, guys. All right, I only have one question actually, which is, yeah, what's one thing that you would recommend early stage startups, teams, when it comes to defining their differentiating messaging?
I think competitor study goes a long way first, right? If you, because the whole point of differentiation is understanding what the space looks like right now and then finding these little wedges where your offering stands out. And second is customer driven approach where you go to the customers, because a lot of times some of the things that we think are important to customers might not actually be that important. And then some of the little things that we take for given might be more important to customers, right? And I think being able to spot these early on, doesn't matter which method you go with, you can talk to customers, you can get these days. I mean, there are like ton of survey platforms, survey pop-ups, all sorts of like analytics tools you can use, but try to figure out the things that your customers care about that the rest of the industry has not resolved and highlight those. I think that's going to go a long way. I would say that's one
Yeah,
thing.
I think this kind of goes right back to ICP. If you have figured out your ICP, that means you have built something within your product and offering that directly resonates with that ICP. I think that's where differentiation is. So the wider you are, you have no idea who your ICP is. That's when creating a differentiation is also challenge. Sooner you find that out, sooner you can zoom in. When I said zoom in, you don't have to be a vertical tool, but then having that ICP is going to help you build a product, and the product is naturally going to have some differentiating factor that is resonating with that ICP.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I definitely think that you guys have like two great things going that a lot of companies don't really have, which is one, you have a lot of context and a lot of knowledge on and clarity, I think, on what you do, who you do it for, and you understand and are able to prioritize one ICP, which is very difficult for a lot of B2B SaaS who have a lot of different decision making units and all that stuff. So I think, yeah, you're in a great position, I think.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate all the insights. And I think this was a very fruitful conversation. And as we were speaking through some of these things, it reminded me that there's a lot of pending things that we need to still, I can update on. That all being said, it is a discovery process for us even now. We're constantly looking at the data, trying to figure out what resonates with our clients and what doesn't, and refine our offering. And if there's one takeaway from all of this, it's that, hey, be comfortable with changes. It is a process of constant experimentation, and even messaging adapts over time, and some messaging that works today might not work in a few months. So you want to be
Especially now when things are different every day with AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So people can find you on echo.win, so echo.win is the website. And also you have a free plan, right? So that's basically the main way to try the product.
Yes, we have a free plan. Feel free to go to our website. You can sign up in a minute and get started and build your own AI agent. We also have a really nice free CRM that I do want to mention here. This is completely free. There's no subscription or anything. And it supports things like custom Kanban boards, custom fields, custom buttons that are actionable, and a lot more. So yeah, feel free to play around with the platform and have fun. And yeah, we're also in LinkedIn, Twitter. Just look up Echo, find us there.
Yeah, awesome. Ashish, Kaushal, thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Hey, thank you, Chris, for hosting.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I had a really good conversation. So looking forward to more in the future.
Cheers.
All right. Have a good day, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If the episode sparked some ideas or made you rethink how you're doing messaging, check out the Message Market Fit Scorecard. It's free, quick to complete, and it'll show you exactly where your copy or strategy might be misaligned. You'll find the link in the show notes. And if you want to go deeper or just bounce ideas around, I'm always up for a chat. Hit me up on LinkedIn or Twitter @SylvesterChris. And of course, if you enjoyed the episode, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps more people discover it. That's it for this one. See you next time.